Welcome to the Indispensables. Today I have Rick Kelly. He's the Chief Strategy Officer for Fuel Cycle, which is a market research platform. They're all about acquiring, retaining, and expanding customer relationships, helping you acquire, retain, and expand customer relationships. So Rick Kelly, welcome to the Indispensables.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on, Bruce.
I'm so glad to have you on. Tell us your story. How does somebody get to be Rick Kelly?
There's no linear progression. It's just a little chaotic, but I'll give you the quick overview. I've been at Fuel Cycle for about 9 years now. It started as a very small company. Fortunately, it's been growing quite nicely over the past few years. But I started in market research. I got into market research because of the recession back in 2008, 2009. I was planning to go pursue further academia. Didn't make that happen. And ended up falling into a market research job about 2 weeks before graduation. Spent time bopping around working in technology. I taught university for a while, and eventually ended up moving to India to work in a tech company. And then on the way back from India, I had to move back in a rush. I emailed a friend and said, "What are you up to?" And turns out that friend was at the company that is now Fuel Cycle. And so it was really happenstance. I started off in customer success, did product development for a few years, and just kind of recently moved into the strategy role. So,
Rick, what I love about what you're saying is, and more people. So, on this show, I have, 4-star generals, I have CEOs, I have people who are like you, phenomenally successful and leading important roles in important organizations. And like clockwork, maybe not the 4-star generals, but everyone else is like, my career just unfolded. That it's not a linear path. Life is not linear,
yeah.
Right? And the most successful people, they're the ones who, like you, somehow they follow opportunity, right? I mean, because you were teaching political science, right?
Oh yeah, political science. Did 2 degrees in that, but I think life is really about velocity rather than direction, right? So it's taking opportunities as they come, and just trying to move and understand, where opportunities lie.
What did you learn? What are the lessons from political science that you use in market research?
Oh, that's a really fantastic question. So I have a statistics background, so obviously a lot of stats, but it's really about human behavior. How do people operate? And of course, one of the things I really enjoy in the strategy role is kind of a game theory background. So studying international conflict, why powers act the way that they do, those types of things. It really plays out well in markets and understanding, how you're going to act and how do, competitors interact with you, how do you acquire, retaining, customers, those types of things.
Game theory, which, so are you like a Kenneth Arrow guy?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I love all thing. I'm a big Axelrod person as well. Reciprocity, tit for tat. Iterative games. It's a really fun process and a good way of kind of structuring the way the world works.
So, do you play chess?
I do play chess.
It's like a big chess game, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not the best chess player, but I enjoy it a lot with my 10-year-old.
Well, if you're gonna play chess with a 10-year-old, then makes you feel like pretty darn good at chess, right?
Yeah, it's a consistent ego boost. Actually, someday when he listens to this podcast, I will say that he is very, very good and can challenge me well.
So tell us. So you were teaching political science. Just out of curiosity, what were you teaching? Game theory and stuff like that, or conflict strategy, and what were you teaching?
Yeah, really 2 topics. One was international relations, and the other was statistics. So research methods, things like that.
And were you in Rexburg?
I was in Rexburg, Idaho. That's right.
So get this, man. My mother-in-law grew up in Chester, Idaho, right along the road on the way from Rexburg to St. Anthony.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I know Rexburg, and I've watched it grow up. We've been going there. We go there every July for a family reunion. And man, BYU in Rexburg is an incredible institution.
Yeah, it's interesting. The way that the school itself has adopted to is really kind of focused on providing maximum value education. So they focus on teaching, helping people kind of move through very quickly at a low cost, and I think it's a great model for education.
Yeah.
But
Also, everyone's so polite.
yeah, and southeastern Idaho is just the most beautiful scenery you've ever seen in your life.
And
It
my
is.
mother-in-law still has a house there, so it's cool, man. We go there all the time, I mean, that's so we're family practically. We're practically family, it turns
There,
out.
there we go. Cousins. I love it.
And so I'm interested in what First Opinion. What did you do at First Opinion?
Well, you know what? First Opinion was founded by a college roommate of mine. And it was a tech startup. I was really desperate just to work in technology. It turns out academia was a little too monotonous for me. And so I really wanted to do something really dynamic and exciting. And technology felt like the right spot to be. And so I ended up just kind of working hard to, apply to a bajillion different jobs, those types of things. My friend ended up starting this company, and he asked me if I would move myself and my family to India to work with doctors and hospital systems in India. And it was really a fortunate experience. I was excited to move, had a good time for a few months there. But my son was diagnosed with a really rare bleeding disorder while we were in India, and we
Oh,
ended up
no.
having to move back in a big hurry. The amazing thing is that while in India, we were able to get some of the best medical care possible. Two doctors, one had moved back from Toronto Children's Hospital, one had moved back from Mayo Clinic, and they diagnosed my son with this incredibly rare condition that they had the opportunity to see that most doctors in the U.S. would have never seen or been able to diagnose before.
So it was all kinds of blessings in disguise there.
Yeah, it was very fortunate. It all worked out really well for us.
But you did have the experience of going to India and doing work with medical technology there. And it's First Opinion. So I'm wondering, is that a reference to First Medical Opinion, or what is the reference there?
Yeah, so it was a startup, so I don't think it's in existence anymore. But the idea was that kind of first opinion for a doctor or for in a medical context, you need kind of a first kind of gut check. So the target market were new parents who wanted to understand, hey, my baby has X, has a rash. Do I need to go see a doctor, or do I just take care of it, right? And so it was that type of thing, and it's a really good idea, and I hope that the idea survives in the future. But it's very much like a text to doctor type solution.
And I guess it's First Opinion as opposed to Second Opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the idea?
Exactly.
Yeah, I like the idea. And okay, and then you go on to Survey Sampling International. Sounds like the through line here is technology and data.
That's
Uh,
right.
so what is Survey Sampling International?
Well, so Survey Sampling International is a company that provides market research respondents for surveys. They're also like a full service data collection provider. It's now rolled up into a company that's called Dynata, where if you're familiar with the market research industry, Dynata is one of kind of the larger conglomerates now, but it really is about providing survey respondents and data processing services to corporations and to market research firms.
And so, in these early experiences, you're traveling around the world. You're becoming an expert in conflict strategy and game theory. You're teaching political science. You're sort of getting your feet wet in technology, in global business. You're learning all kind of different approaches to data acquisition and data utilization and data analysis. You're becoming you're getting all of this experience in the world of that leads you to become a leader in market research. And now for 9 years, you've been applying that. And so I'm guessing that first part was like because you actually have an MBA, right?
That's right.
But this sounds like you also this is like your doctorate in business administration, just nobody issued a degree.
And there you go. I think that's a fair assessment.
and then you find yourself running strategy at Fuel Cycle, and from what I gather, it's a rapidly growing business for the 9 years you've been there. So whatever you're doing, it must be working.
There's a lot of trial by experience. There's lots of challenges and everything too, but it's also really exciting. I've been fortunate to work with a great team and a great group of people, and I think the one thing that I've learned personally is to talk to customers all the time. Ultimately, business is about kind of making and building something that people want to buy, and so understanding customer problems and kind of the jobs to be done within a customer framework is really really important. And so talking to customers, learning from them is I really attribute that to our success.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Clients always say to me, because I'm a consultant, right? And I always say it beats working, but and I always tell my clients, before I get working, because I tell them, look, the bill is going to be, exorbitant. Just FYI, like it's not cheap. It's not even expensive. It's exorbitant. And what I'm going to do is borrow your watch and then tell you what time it is. Right?
I
but
love
but but somehow, maybe it's the independent third party, maybe it's all of your expertise and experience, and at some point you bring a wisdom to the table, right?
Yeah. And I think, price is such an interesting topic. I love kind of pricing dynamics and everything, but it really is about value, right? So value provided. And because you can have a high bill, but if you're providing value, then you're going to see repeat business. And, kind of understanding customer businesses, providing value, it's a good way to generate a living.
Yeah, and I want to understand your team and how you do what you do. But it sounds like what you manage to deliver at Fuel Cycle is helping organizations uh, do what you call customer-led decision making. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly
Can,
right.
can you explain that?
Yeah.
What is that?
So ultimately, every business is going to be better off if they make more customer led decisions, meaning that they're going to have higher efficiency, better return on investment, those types of things when they follow customer needs. And in an era where that's incredibly dynamic, whether it's the economy, whether it's new technologies, or it's new products, new supply chain systems, or COVID, or anything like that, is that ultimately there's kind of very significant shifts in a very short time period in customer preferences. And so being able to stay abreast of those changes and understand customer needs as they're evolving in real time is an imperative. There's a um, there's a 2016 study put out by the Boston Consulting Group that ranks customer-led decision making as one of the top two priorities for global executives. But at the same time, only 11% of those global executives are actually satisfied or extremely satisfied with their customer-led decision making process. So you have this huge need where there's a big need to make more customer-led decisions, but ultimately the process and everything is not delivering the value that it ought to for businesses to be successful. And so we're trying to help shift that by helping brands kind of understand what customers want, how to package, price, and deliver that to the market in a very streamlined, efficient manner.
Yeah. So what do you guys do that's different? Like, how do you do that? And
Yeah.
I take it the process is the fuel cycle.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a platform. It's a software platform that connects all your insight solutions into one kind of unified ecosystem. So essentially, there's a lot of point solutions within an enterprise, whether it's surveys or focus group data or CRM, behavioral data, and Fuel Cycle consolidates those all into a single platform that allows you to have that kind of constant connection with your key audiences. So if you want to go out and talk to customers, you can do that in the moment. You can run a really advanced pricing study this afternoon after setting it up this morning, and then say a need for a set of focus groups or user interviews comes up. Well, you can be running those on the same day, and so it's really about expanding the volume and efficiency with which businesses can operate and incorporate those customer voices into their actual decision making.
So is it how much is it about data acquisition? How much is it about data analysis? How much of it is about data reporting and pattern illustration? And how much of it is about predicting the future? Because you talk about future proofing, and I'm guessing that means the level of business intelligence you all are doing. It's not just acquiring data or mining data. It's not just mapping data, but it's learning from data and saying, and so here's where we think this is going. Here's what we think you should do next.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So ultimately, like the analysis is dependent upon data collection. So data collection is a big part of it, but then incorporating analyses is really, really important too. A good example of how we're supporting those types of things is, hey, we'll take your data in from like a CRM. So say behavioral data around like,
And for the uninitiated, CRM is a customer relationship management package, right?
yeah, thank you
Let's
for
say
clarifying.
Salesforce.
Exactly. So thank you for clarifying because it can have a lot of behavioral data, say like your subscription tiers or most recent, recent product purchase, something along those lines. You tie that to stated preference data, which is oftentimes like survey data. Now, so you tie that with the survey data, and then we're going to be able to deliver something like this machine learning segmentation solution that helps you identify which audiences are most open to a new product concept or a new advertising concept, but also those who are rejecting it. And in addition to that, we will be able to give you actionable drivers and tell you, here's how you should alter this product or alter this message in order to acquire more customers without sacrificing other customers that are already open to purchasing. And so it's trying to make that insight like really, really actionable by incorporating all data available, but also using new analysis solutions to drive additional value for brands.
Yeah, and so one of the things I find interesting about business intelligence, you know, I mean, I've been doing management consulting for 30 years, right? So I remember when we started realizing, oh, you know, and we first started seeing this in credit card companies and stuff, where you could, oh, well, wait, we're gathering that if we keep track of this data, right, then we can start reporting this data and we can look. So then you're looking in the rearview mirror. And
Yep.
then people started realizing maybe we can learn from this data and project out into the future, right? And then of course there's so much data available now. The biggest problem is not get right. We've got data. It's knowing what the heck to do with it.
Yep, exactly. It's there's a lot of data, but not a lot of it's actionable. It's either too late or not meaningful, right? And so, how do you translate insights into action? I think that's really the fundamental question, right?
And so the fuel cycle, is it like is that the idea that then to turn the insights into decisions?
Exactly. So ultimately, insights are only valuable if they're acted on, right? So most if you think about like historical market research processes and things like that, is you're creating a PowerPoint that goes into some corporate SharePoint to die, right? So it gets looked at by a few people, but then it's all retrospective. I'm reminded of the one of my favorite quotes is from Peter Drucker, which is strategy is a commodity, execution is an art. And so ultimately, collecting data, collecting insights, that's it's a commodity. There's lots of data, there's lots of information generated from a business. Ultimately, being able to act on it, being able to execute based on those insights, that's where art comes in, and ultimately creating action is where value comes from a business.
And back to game theory and political science and conflict strategy. It's by doing, say, an after action review, looking at what decisions were made, what actions were taken, what options were foreclosed, what options were opened up, and then doing a decision action tree going forward, like a chess game. If I do A, then they might do B. If they do B, I might do C. That opens up D, E, and F. And each of those create and gosh, you might need a software platform with algorithms to figure all that stuff out if it gets to be too much, right?
Exactly. If only one like fuel cycle existed.
Yeah. And I think this is great stuff. And you're a growing organization. And where are you based?
So we have offices in Los Angeles and in New York. I'm
Okay.
personally in LA.
And how big of an organization is this?
So about 130 people today.
No.
When I started, it was probably 13 people or so, and
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been fun. We've had no outside funding or anything like that, so it's all been kind of growth.
So it's privately held.
Oh yeah, and it's a lot of fun to do it that way. It's kind of like playing a game on hard mode, but it's also a lot of fun because again, we really have to be highly attuned to customer needs.
So you don't have outside investors, you just have internal owners.
Yeah, that's right.
So you must have private equity folks preying upon you.
Well, that's a great question. There's lots of, I think sending emails is cheap and easy. So people always do try and talk, but we haven't done anything yet.
No, but I mean, they must be like circling around you, trying to figure out your net present value and all that stuff.
Oh, I'm sure that's true.
And so who are the folks who work for you? Are they? I mean, is it consultants? That's who most of the folks are, or are they software developers, or are they business intelligence analysts?
Yeah. So first of all, we have the greatest team. I feel so fortunate to work with the people that we work with. One of our core values here is team before self, and really we find that permeates our organization. So there's a very large product development and software engineering team, and it's supplemented by fantastic go-to-market teams, but also a handful of consultants that sit here internally and help clients derive maximum value from our software.
And so, what does your team look like? What is your chief strategy officer? Obviously, you have a seat at the C-level table, so there must be like an executive leadership team that you're a part of.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate again to work with a great set of colleagues. Today, I have the product team, so kind of the product development team working with me, as well as our partnerships team. And then, in my role, I get to work really cross-functionally across the organization and get input and output from every team, whether it's our go-to-market teams or it's our software development team or whatever that might be. Strategy is really about the art of finding ways to grow, and
So, is your boss the CEO?
that's right.
And then, who are your direct reports? Like, how many people are on your immediate team?
So one of the things I know about myself is I try and slim down as many direct reports as possible. But so I have our VP of product and our director of partnerships that are my direct reports.
So, you're leading leaders who lead leaders who lead leaders.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, it's and so, but what's it like? So, is the CEO? What kind of relationship is that? I mean, there's CEOs and there's CEOs. There's CEOs who believe in strategy, and then like it's the CEO and the CFO and the COO and the strategy person, right? Is that kind of what your deal is, or?
Yeah, that's more or less it. And I have a really, really fantastic mentor and CEO. His name is Ron Gilad. We worked together for I think going on 7 years now, and I'm very fortunate to have been able to learn. He's a person that has a Zen like quality and about him, where very steady, very very patient. Also inspires people to perform at their best. And so in my functions, where I get to focus on kind of business development, but also corporate development and everything as well. It's a very much a kind of constant daily dialogue, and I'm very fortunate to be able to work with them.
Constant daily dialogue. That sounds like something I might write in a book. So look, I always say the first person you got to manage every day is yourself. What's your strategy for managing? What's Rick's strategy for managing Rick?
That's a great question. I would say for myself is I'm fortunate that work is my hobby as well. So I really enjoy what I do. I also enjoy my kids and everything too. So
Yeah,
I get.
how is your child, the one who had an illness?
Oh yeah, it's a long term thing. Fortunately, he does really well, and he probably has the best medical care for his condition in the world, to be honest. And so we're very grateful that that's worked out for him. So I again, I'm fortunate that my work is my hobby. I like to have fun. I enjoy what I do. I tend to wake up early. If I sit on the couch after 9 p.m., I fall asleep. But it's kind of keeping a steady to do list, trying to prioritize and make myself available. I think maintaining mental health and kind of positive mental state is really really important, especially in a long term role like this. So I try and exercise, try and eat well, try and have fun. Saturdays are a good day for me where I feel like that's kind of a family day where I try and chill and relax as much as possible with kids and everything too.
Do you ever get back to Rexburg?
I have not been back to Rexburg in probably a decade.
Golly. All right. Well, I'll say hi to Rexburg for you in July.
Okay.
So the first person you got to manage every day is yourself. And point of personal curiosity. What's your fitness thing? What's your fitness routine?
Oh, just at a, I mean, so I'm not gonna say that I do anything wonderfully, but I really enjoy weightlifting, so like powerlifting, and then mix that in with kind of some low intensity aerobic exercise.
That's good training. Do you have a dog?
I am no dog at this point.
No dog, but you have kids. How many kids?
I have two kids.
So you run around chasing after them, right?
Oh yeah, they're very very active.
And okay, so the second person you got to manage every day is your boss, I usually say. And you said you have a Zen like CEO who's been there, also a mentor, been there for 7 years or so. What's your strategy for staying in that constant dialogue? How do you do that?
So I think there's steady availability, and also just kind of a constant cadence of communication. So if we're in the office together, obviously it's easy for us to kind of swing by each other's desks and chat with each other. But also it's phone calls, texts, things like that. Just being able to say, hey, I have this idea. Can we chat for 5 minutes really quickly? And so really, I don't think that everybody has the ability to have that type of dialogue and kind of collaboration with the CEO, but fortunately, I do.
And the cadence, constant. I like that constant cadence of communication. I like that.
It's good
That
alliteration, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's a nice concept. And my observation is that everybody kind of gets in that one relationship is different from another, right? That one cadence you get into you build a unique dialogue with each person. It's different with one CEO as opposed to another, or
Yeah,
one colleague as opposed to another, right?
yeah, exactly. Each relationship, whether it's a CFO, a CEO, it's a direct report, it's all different, right? And they all have to be nurtured differently. And so, understanding different people's communication styles, preferences for collaboration, really, it's about adapting to each other while still kind of maintaining your own approach, but adapting to kind of maximize value for the business.
And you've got two key lieutenants, right?
Hmm.
So what's your what kind of leader are you? What's your strategy for leading your two key lieutenants and helping them help you help them?
I would say that first of all, there's a strategy and there's kind of an overall approach, but then also there's different times necessitate different styles of leadership. So if there's a crisis or there's something urgent, then stepping in and being heavy-handed may be required. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's required. And I think it's best not to pretend like it's not sometimes required. But in general, I like to set context and I like to provide communication, set expectations early up front, and then have people execute autonomously. So I don't want to be the one that's building out a plan. In fact, if I'm building out a plan, then usually there's something wrong. But I'd like to set context, provide as much information as possible, describe what success looks like, and the outcome expected from success, and then have our team members go ahead and execute on that.
Yeah. So of course there's firefighting. Then it's all hands on deck. But providing input and context, as you say, and information and desired outcomes, and working with folks to develop a plan. That's really the art of fire prevention, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a phrase that I don't know where I heard this. Maybe I generated it, but is you choose your own stress, right? And so you choose your own stress, whether you put the stress up front or you backload it. Like you're going to have some inflection point. And so the best way to prevent kind of the reactive stress is to put in the effort up front. So put in effort up front to prevent kind of reactive stress in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it's like General Eisenhower's time management matrix that Stephen Covey popularized, quadrant two, right? Things that are very important but not urgent. Exercise up
Yep.
front is better stress than a heart attack.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly that.
fire prevention up front is better stress than a fire,
Yeah,
right? A good plan is better stress than scrambling, right? Investing in your relationships is better stress than a divorce.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I just finished this book. It just came out. It's this Oxford professor that wrote. I think the title is "How Big Things Get Done," and it's about like kind of big projects and how they get executed. Turns out, like the number one thing is the volume of preparation and planning that goes into executing a big project is the number one determinant of whether that project will be successful or not. So whether you're building the Sydney Opera House or the Guggenheim Museum or something like that, it really is a function. How well it goes is a function of preparation and planning.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's true of everything. I always say, anyone who makes something look easy, mark my words, it's because they were doing the hard work in advance behind the scenes.
Exactly, exactly. A lot of effort makes things look effortless.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like if you do a whole bunch of push-ups every day, then doing 50 push-ups looks easy.
Exactly.
But it doesn't look easy unless you've done thousands of push-ups.
That's exactly right. I agree with that.
So okay, so what's your day look like? How do you succeed every day? I mean, this is about look, I mean, a lot of people who listen to this podcast, I think what they're thinking is, how do I get to be like this guy? Not everybody is the chief strategy officer of an organization that has grown tenfold in a 14-year period, right? Not everybody, people look and you say, oh well, I was teaching, then I went to India, did a little international business, and then I got a master's degree in business administration. Oh, a little of this, a little of that. Well, I mean, to most people, they're like, well, I could never be like Rick Kelly. How does somebody get to be like you?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm the person that they want to be like, but something I think that I read this in one of your blog posts is around like saying no, and so for me, I've said yes to lots of opportunities, and now I have to kind of really curate the amount of things I say yes to, and so saying no and setting priorities for what I want is really key. And ultimately, there's trade-offs and everything. So being an executive in a growing company means that, you're often attached to your phone. I was on vacation last week and I took phone calls, not because I wanted to or was desperate to, it's because, it was kind of necessary to kind of unblock a few things and things like that. And so ultimately, I think a lot of satisfaction in life comes from choosing and knowing what you want and living in accordance with those values. So for me, I really feel like I've got kind of one life to live, and so I'd like to explore that, both professionally and personally. What does that look like? And that means that I want to work hard. I want to learn really quickly, and they'll never see the volume of times that I've completely screwed something up because I screw things up all the time, but I try and kind of correct and fix those on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great research. Warren Bennis was famous for a lot of things, but one of the great lessons I learned from Warren Bennis was that the most effective leaders, it's not that they don't make mistakes, it's that they make the same number of mistakes. It's just they recognize them and correct them.
Yeah, there's a great framework. It's Boyd's Law of Iteration. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but this is comes out of the Vietnam War with Colonel John Boyd, who was a Air Force pilot at the time. And so ultimately, he was the one who kind of created the whole OODA loop framework. Ultimately, the velocity of decision making produces better outcomes over time rather than making the right decision the first time. So I'd rather take enough information, make a decision, and then be able to correct than to wait too long to make a decision.
Yeah, it's the fail fast model.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's but you gotta fail with as little damage as possible and as rapid correction as possible. And it's, as you say, iterative. And it turns out real innovation is almost always iterative.
Oh yeah. So like low cost failure is super important. By the way, that's like the importance of market research is you have like very low fidelity, prototypes, something that's very early before it goes into production. Do people want to buy this or not? right? So low cost iteration or low cost failure is pretty critical.
Yeah, low cost failure is the key to sustainable iteration, right?
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's good stuff. So you got to know. I always say when to say no, and because as you say, your yeses are time consuming, and you got to be careful how you allocate your time. Yes is a commitment, right?
That's right. That's right.
So okay, do you have so you're getting on an elevator with some young person who's looking over and going, "Wow, that's Rick Kelly," and they've only got an elevator ride. Do you have what's your closing word of advice?
Again, I'm not sure this person wants to be me, but I would just say, know yourself, and live in accordance with that. So if you want to be a CEO, then there's a price to be paid for being a CEO. If you want to have a lot of simplicity and bliss in your life, then probably leading a company isn't the right thing for you. But there's all trade offs. There's no perfect decision, and ultimately knowing what you personally want is the most important thing you can do.
To thine own self be true.
Love it.
Rick Kelly, Chief Strategy Officer for Fuel Cycle. Thank you for being a guest on the Indispensables. I've learned a lot. I hope our guests are learning a lot. I can only imagine they are. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks again for having me on, Bruce. This has been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.